Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex stories, unpack them, and give you those critical insights you need to be, well, truly well informed. Today, we're diving into one of humanity's most audacious endeavors, I think it's fair to say, the Apollo program.
Oh, absolutely. Audacious is the right word.
It really pushed the boundaries of engineering, courage, sheer human will. And, before we saw those iconic moments, the triumphs, that small step becoming a giant leap, there were some profound setbacks, incredible engineering feats too, but also this relentless pursuit of knowledge that just defined that era.
Mhm.
Our mission today is to take a deep dive into a really pivotal moment, one that maybe gets overlooked sometimes. Apollo 4.
It's not the household name like Apollo 11, is
No,
it?
exactly. But it's arguably one of the most critical steps. You see, Apollo 4 was the direct, bold answer to one of NASA's darkest hours. We're going to bridge that incredibly difficult period, that transformative time between the tragic Apollo 1 fire and this hugely significant, uncrewed first all-up test flight of the mighty Saturn V rocket, Apollo 4.
A crucial link.
Our goal is for you to walk away from this deep dive with a really clear understanding of the developments, the specific hardware, the monumental steps that took NASA from, well, a devastating loss to a groundbreaking success. It really set the stage for humans reaching the moon.
It's a powerful story, isn't it? Moving from that shadow into the light of renewed purpose. And we'll be drawing our insights mainly from NASA's own extensive historical records. There's statistical references, too. Documents like Apollo by the Numbers, the NASA History Series, specific mission reports.
Real primary source stuff.
Exactly. They give us the factual backbone, but also, a window into the meticulous documentation, the intense scrutiny that really underpinned the whole Apollo program. It lets us understand not just what happened, but crucially, why it mattered and what it all meant for the future of human spaceflight.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we can really appreciate the triumph of Apollo 4, we have to acknowledge the immense shadow that was looming over the whole program. We're talking, of course, about the Apollo 1 tragedy, a truly devastating moment that shook the nation and certainly NASA right to its core.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just a setback, it was a profound loss. It forced a complete reevaluation of everything.
Indeed. January 27, 1967.
Mm-hmm.
What was meant to be a routine, though critical, pre-flight plugs-out test for Apollo 204, it was happening in Cape Kennedy. It turned into a national tragedy. And it's important, like you said, to stress this wasn't a launch attempt.
No.
It was a simulation on the launch pad. They were rehearsing launch day procedures. The command module was still connected to external power and comms, but without its umbilicals to the tower.
Right, the plugs out part.
Exactly. And during this test, a fire just erupted inside the command module. It led to the heartbreaking loss of 3 American astronauts: Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee.
Gus Grissom, Ed White, Roger Chaffee, names we should remember. These weren't just astronauts, they were pioneers. Their loss was felt so deeply. Grissom, one of the original Mercury 7, right?
That's right.
A veteran. White, the first American to walk in space. And Chaffee, a rookie, but everyone said he was a highly regarded pilot. The fact that this happened on the pad during what is essentially a ground test, it must have been just absolutely crushing for everyone involved.
Unimaginable.
It wasn't like a massive rocket exploding mid-flight. It was this contained disaster, a flash fire that trapped them in an instant inside their own spacecraft.
The impact was, as you say, profound,
Yeah.
just immediate. The program came to a grinding halt. You could just imagine the shock waves rippling through NASA, through Congress, the public.
Everything just stopped.
Yeah. The immediate response was to form an accident investigation board. They delved into every single detail meticulously, and their findings were stark. The fire was fueled by the pure oxygen atmosphere.
Which they used at the time.
Yes, pressurized in the cabin, at launch pressure. It was ignited by a spark, probably from damaged wiring somewhere, and then, compounding the tragedy, was the hatch design. It opened inwards.
Inward, so the pressure from the fire would seal it shut.
Exactly. Made escape impossible with the rapidly increasing internal pressure. And on top of that, there was just an abundance of flammable materials throughout the cabin. Nylon netting, Velcro, things like that.
So it wasn't just one single point of failure. It sounds like a terrible confluence of design choices, materials, procedures, creating this death trap.
That's a harsh way to put it, but accurate.
And this catastrophic event, it just necessitated a thorough, almost surgical reevaluation, every single aspect of the Apollo program. And while our sources, like NASA's official histories, they state the facts clearly, they don't always detail every single procedural change that resulted right there. But the sheer scale of the accident demanded a complete overhaul.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't just tweaking things, it was fundamentally rethinking safety, engineering, everything from the ground up.
Exactly. The investigation led to sweeping redesigns of the command module. Huge changes. The pure oxygen atmosphere for ground tests, gone. Replaced with a nitrogen-oxygen mix, much safer and at a lower pressure.
Okay.
That infamous inward opening hatch, completely redesigned, a new quick-release outward opening system could be opened in seconds.
A critical change.
Absolutely critical. And every single piece of wiring was meticulously inspected, rerouted with better protection, all those flammable materials in the cabin, replaced with fire-resistant alternatives, beta cloth, Teflon. But this shift, it wasn't just about hardware. It really changed the culture at NASA, too. It instilled an even deeper, just an unyielding commitment to safety protocols, rigorous testing, documentation.
Like God to.
It had to. This kind of introspective scrutiny, born from tragedy, it's vital in high-stakes engineering. It forced a fundamental recalibration of risk versus ambition.
What's interesting, though, is how open NASA has always been about this painful chapter. They've made extensive resources available for remembering Apollo 1, biographies, reports, bibliographies. Transparency.
It really underscores not just the ongoing remembrance of Grissom, White, and Chaffee, but also NASA's unwavering commitment to learning from even its most devastating lessons. It's an integral, though obviously somber, part of their story. A reminder that exploration is inherently risky, but every possible measure must be taken to protect human life.
It is. And that transparency, particularly facing such a loss, it really became a cornerstone for the program moving forward. It's not just about moving on. It's about remembering, understanding, constantly improving. It reflects a core value in science and engineering, doesn't it? Acknowledge failures openly, learn from them exhaustively, apply those lessons rigorously. Because the stakes just couldn't be higher. It shaped all the subsequent missions profoundly.
Okay, so now, to really appreciate the incredible comeback that Apollo 4 represented, we need to zoom out a bit. Look at the bigger picture. Project Apollo wasn't just about planting a flag on the moon. That was the iconic goal, sure, but it was this massive, multifaceted undertaking. The goals stretched far beyond that single achievement.
That's a really important point. And what's fascinating is how ambitious and forward-thinking these overarching goals were, laid out by NASA, driven by this complex mix of science, technology, geopolitics.
Yeah, if you connect this to the bigger picture, Apollo was definitely a strategic national endeavor, born right in the heat of the Cold War. So one primary goal was simply establishing the technology needed to meet other national interests in space. It wasn't solely exploration for exploration's sake.
It was strategic.
It was a broader strategic imperative, demonstrating unprecedented capabilities, fostering innovation across numerous industries back home. Think of like a massive R&D engine for the nation.
Pushing everything forward.
Pushing material science, computer tech, telemetry, countless other fields forward at just an astonishing pace. The ripple effects on consumer technology, things like microchips, advanced materials. We still feel those today.
And you mentioned the Cold War context. We can't forget that. The space race was this very visible arena for ideological competition, right? A symbolic battleground.
Absolutely central to understanding Apollo.
So another critical goal was achieving preeminence in space for the United States. Leadership, not just scientifically or technologically, but geopolitically. When Sputnik launched in '57, it sent shockwaves through America. Kennedy's call to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That was a direct response to Soviet successes, like Yuri Gagarin becoming the first human in space.
A direct challenge.
It added this immense pressure, a fierce urgency to every single step of the program.
Absolutely. But beyond the tech leadership and geopolitical one-upmanship, there was also this profound dedication to pure scientific exploration. The program aimed to carry out a comprehensive scientific exploration of the moon. Not just get there, but understand its geology, unravel its origins, assess its potential resources.
Answering the big questions.
Exactly. How did the moon form? What's its composition? What can it tell us about the early solar system? This meant collecting lunar samples, deploying scientific instruments, mapping the surface in detail. The moon was seen as this vast, untouched laboratory, holding fundamental secrets about our solar system. It wasn't just a destination. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved.
That's a crucial distinction. It wasn't just a stunt to beat the Soviets, though that was part of it. It was about deep, fundamental science that would benefit everyone. And then there's the human element, which sometimes gets overlooked when we talk about the rockets and the science.
True.
A key objective was developing the human capability to live and work effectively in the lunar environment. This was about more than just a quick visit.
Planning for the future.
Right, preparing for a sustained human presence beyond Earth. What were the physiological challenges? Psychological. How would astronauts adapt to low gravity? How would they perform complex tasks in those bulky spacesuits? All these questions needed answers for a future beyond just Apollo.
And this raises an important point, right? How do these broad goals show the foresight, the long-term vision behind the immediate mission objectives? Each test flight, each incremental step, even an uncrewed one like Apollo 4, carried the immense weight of all these overarching ambitions. The stakes for every single flight were incredibly high.
Because everything was connected.
Exactly. The success of the entire multifaceted program, stretching far beyond the 60s, hinged on demonstrating consistent progress towards these deeply intertwined goals. It shows a truly holistic vision for space exploration, where immediate tactical successes fed into this much larger strategic picture.
Okay, so to get to the moon and achieve all those incredible multifaceted goals, you needed some seriously impressive hardware. This wasn't just a simple capsule. The Apollo spacecraft itself was this three-part marvel of engineering, each component designed for a very specific critical role in this complex lunar ballet.
That's right. A truly sophisticated machine, a testament to ingenuity. At its heart, you have the command module, the CM. This is the crew's living quarters, the flight control section, basically the brains and the home for the astronauts on their journey. And crucially, the only part that came back to Earth.
The return vehicle.
Precisely. It housed the guidance, navigation, control systems, comms equipment, environmental control, life support, everything vital for the crew. And after Apollo 1, this module underwent those extensive redesigns we talked about. Focus on fire resistance, that quick opening hatch, enhanced safety systems. Protecting the crew was paramount.
And connected directly to that command module was the service module, the SM.
The powerhouse.
Right, the powerhouse, the workhorse. It carried the main propulsion system, the Big Service Propulsion System engine, the SPS, plus all its propellants.
And all the essential support systems, too.
Yeah.
Oxygen, water, electrical power from fuel cells, the larger maneuvering thrusters. Think of it as the engine room and the life support reservoir for the command module. Together, the CM and SM formed the Command and Service Module, the CSM. That's the part that traveled from Earth to lunar orbit and back. The SM itself would be jettisoned just before re-entry, burning up in the atmosphere.
Leaving just the CM to come home.
Correct. Then you have the Lunar Module, the LM, which was truly unique, maybe the most iconic piece of Apollo hardware, besides the Saturn V itself.
That spindly-looking thing.
Exactly. Its sole purpose was to ferry 2 crew members from lunar orbit down to the surface, keep them alive while they were on the moon up to 3 days, originally, and then launch them safely back up to the CSM, waiting in orbit.
A dedicated lander and ascent vehicle.
Yes, it was a 2-stage vehicle itself. A descent stage with the landing gear, propellant scientific gear that stayed on the moon. An ascent stage that housed the crew and the engine for the return trip back to orbit. This specific revolutionary design really highlights that critical lunar orbit rendezvous flight mode that they chose for Apollo.
Yep.
And, the Apollo Spacecraft News reference book, published back in 1968, it really serves as a testament to the ongoing documentation, the evolution of this complex vehicle. It was like their constantly updated Bible of its design and capabilities.
Okay, let's talk about that flight mode, lunar orbit rendezvous, all R. Because that was a huge decision, right? Highly debated.
Oh, massively debated.
And this critical flight mode, it was actually selected way back in 1962, long before any landing was really tangible. This single decision, made so early, it fundamentally shaped the entire design of the spacecraft, the mission architecture. It wasn't a foregone conclusion, was it? There were other ideas.
Absolutely not foregone.
Yeah.
And the lower decision was anything but simple. There were 2 main alternatives being seriously considered: direct descent and Earth orbit rendezvous, or EOR.
Direct descent sounds direct.
It does. It would have involved launching one absolutely enormous rocket, think way bigger than even the Saturn V, powerful enough to lift a single spacecraft directly from Earth, land it on the moon, and then launch it back to Earth. All in one piece, essentially.
Wow. The challenge.
Building that rocket. It would have required something significantly larger, more complex than Saturn V, probably beyond the capabilities and the tight timeline of the 1960s. It would have been a whole new, massive engineering challenge in itself.
Okay, so direct descent was maybe too big a leap. What about EOR, Earth Orbit Rendezvous?
EOR involved launching multiple smaller rockets into Earth orbit. Then, the components of the lunar mission, the lander, the return vehicle, the fuel would be assembled up there in Earth orbit before heading off to the moon.
Sounds complex.
Incredibly complex. Multiple launches needed perfect timing. Multiple highly precise dockings in Earth orbit. The sheer logistics of assembling a moonbound spacecraft hundreds of miles up. It was a potential nightmare.
Every docking is a potential failure point.
Exactly. Plus, there was a significant fuel penalty for assembling and departing from Earth orbit versus heading straight out.
So Illawarra emerged as a winner.
Yes. Lunar orbit rendezvous meant separating the landing vehicle, the LM, from the return vehicle, the CSM, only after they reached lunar orbit. This saved a huge amount of weight because you didn't need to land the entire CSM on the moon, just the lighter LM.
Makes sense?
It also increased flexibility, a more modular approach to design, testing, even contingency planning if something went wrong. Now, despite the inherent risk of having to perform that critical rendezvous and docking maneuver way out in lunar orbit.
Which had never been done before.
Right, a huge unknown. But Bellari was ultimately chosen as the most elegant, the most efficient, and frankly, the most achievable solution within the program's ambitious timeline and technological constraints. It was a brilliant, though definitely risky engineering compromise, and it truly defined Apollo's success.
And to propel all these incredible pieces of hardware, the CSM, the LM, through space, to escape Earth's gravity journey all the way to the moon, you needed power. Real, monumental, unprecedented power.
The rockets.
NASA used two main boosters for Apollo. First, there was the Saturn IB that was designed for the Earth orbit flights.
A crucial stepping stone.
Exactly, a testbed. It let engineers refine techniques, test the CSM, even fly early crewed missions in Earth orbit like Apollo 7. It laid the groundwork before the really massive missions.
But the real legend, the absolute backbone of the entire lunar mission, was the Saturn V.
The Giant.
The Giant. Designated specifically for lunar flights, its sheer scale, its importance, you just can't overstate it. Standing 363 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty, weighing 6.2 million pounds fully fueled.
Incredible numbers.
It was, and it remains, the most powerful rocket ever successfully launched.
Yeah.
Just the absolute pinnacle of American engineering power at the time.
And it had 3 stages, right?
Yes. 3 stages. The first stage, the SIC, had 5 massive F1 engines. Together, they produced 7.5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Just unbelievable power.
You could feel that miles away.
Oh, absolutely. The ground shook. Then the second stage, the SEA, used 5 J2 engines, burning liquid hydrogen and oxygen. And the third stage, the SIVB, had a single J2 engine. This stage was crucial not just for getting into Earth orbit, but it was restartable. It performed the critical translunar injection burn, the TLI, that pushed the spacecraft out of Earth orbit and sent it on its way towards the moon.
So this colossal vehicle, the Saturn V, was capable of lifting that enormous payload, the CSM, the LM, all the fuel and supplies out of Earth's formidable gravity well and setting it on just the right path to the moon.
Precisely.
So why these rockets? Why such immense power? I mean, it really boils down to basic physics, doesn't it? Escaping Earth's gravity.
Fundamentally, yes. Earth's gravity well is deep. To launch a complex spacecraft, carrying humans, enough fuel and supplies to get to the moon, land, come back. It required an unprecedented amount of thrust. And precision, too.
It wasn't just brute force.
Not at all. These rockets weren't just powerful. They were precisely engineered marvels. Each stage was a masterpiece of manufacturing, guidance, control.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of just producing the F1 and J2 engines, the massive fuel tanks, the intricate guidance systems, that was a monumental challenge in itself. They were absolutely necessary to make the lunar journey possible. Their development was a huge part of the whole Apollo effort.
Okay, here's where the story really takes that turn. After the devastation of Apollo 1, the program wasn't just halted. It went through this intense period of scrutiny, redesign, and frankly, soul-searching.
A very difficult time.
The whole world was watching, wondering, is the moon dream over? And Apollo 4 emerges from this shadow. It's the first major step back into flight, but under this new, much more rigorous paradigm. This wasn't just another launch, it was a reaffirmation. A calculated gamble to prove the path to the moon was still viable, that the lessons of tragedy had been learned, had been applied. This was NASA's moment of truth, wasn't it? A crucial test of their commitment, their renewed engineering integrity.
Absolutely. The genesis of Apollo 4, coming after that tragic loss of Grissom, White, and Chaffee, it represented a profound shift in approach. The program had to demonstrate unequivocally that it had learned from the tragedy, that significant fundamental changes were implemented to enhance safety, reliability.
No room for error now.
None. Consequently, Apollo 4 was explicitly an uncrewed mission, and that wasn't a small decision. It was a critical safety measure. It allowed for a full system test without risking human lives, acknowledging that heightened sensitivity, the absolute necessity of proving system integrity before any crew flew again.
Yeah.
The pressure to succeed was just immense for the engineers, for the whole nation.
And this brings us to the mission's core purpose, the all-up test. Now, this is a concept that might not sound dramatic, but talking to engineers, it was incredibly bold and utterly crucial.
It really was.
Historically, rockets were often tested, stage by stage?
Yeah, the conservative approach. You'd fly the first stage, analyze it, then maybe the first and second stages together, and so on. Build up confidence incrementally.
Minimized risk, but it was slow.
Very slow. And after Apollo 1, facing that tight deadline, Kennedy's deadline, end of the decade, NASA made this incredibly audacious decision to go all up for the Saturn V's debut.
So what did all up mean in practice for Apollo 4?
It meant instead of testing each stage of the Saturn V individually, the plan was to fire all 3 stages consecutively, just as they would during a real crewed lunar mission.
Everything at once?
Everything. From launch through staging, simulating the burn to send the spacecraft towards the moon, even including a high-speed re-entry test, all in one go.
Wow. The confidence that showed, even after Apollo 1.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It signified this extraordinary belief in the engineering, the manufacturing, the assembly processes that created the Saturn V, combined, of course, with those rigorous quality control measures that had been dramatically tightened post-tragedy. It was bold, yes, but it was a meticulously calculated risk, deemed necessary to meet that incredibly ambitious timeline. A piecemeal test approach would have taken far too long, jeopardizing the entire lunar landing schedule.
You really have to emphasize this point. This was the first all-up test of the 3-stage Saturn V rocket.
The very first.
This wasn't just any rocket test. This was the debut of the colossal vehicle that would ultimately carry humans to the moon. Every single future lunar landing depended on this giant performing flawlessly right out of the gate after the profound trauma of Apollo 1. The stakes just couldn't have been higher.
Indeed. And while the source, concisely states Apollo 4 was the first all-up test, we can infer a whole suite of critical, detailed mission goals just from the nature of such a comprehensive test. Firstly, it aimed to verify the structural integrity, the aerodynamic performance of the entire 3-stage Saturn V system under real flight loads, real conditions, from ignition, liftoff, through the vacuum of space.
Make sure it held together.
Exactly. And confirm the precise thrust duration staging of each powerful engine. The F1s on the first stage, the J2s on the second and third. Engineers needed to know that their computer models actually matched the real-world performance of this unprecedented machine.
So, validating the models. What else?
Secondly, it was essential to test the intricate separation mechanisms between those massive stages. Each stage had to detach cleanly, on time, with the right trajectory for the next stage to ignite and continue.
A complex sequence.
Very. Involving pyrotechnic bolts, retro rockets, precise timing. Any hiccup there could mean mission failure. The forces involved in those separations were immense. Their success was paramount.
Okay, structure, staging.
Yeah.
What about the spacecraft itself?
Thirdly, yes, the mission aimed to validate the command and service module's performance, the CSM's performance, in a realistic flight environment, testing its structural integrity, its ability to maintain internal temperature control during different solar orientations, its communication systems, and critically, after simulating that translunar injection burn, the command module was put through a simulated high-speed re-entry, plunging back into Earth's atmosphere at about 25,000 miles per hour. Lunar return velocity.
The ultimate test for the heat shield.
Precisely. That redesigned heat shield, remember, this was crucial. That ablative material had to perform exactly as designed, charring away to dissipate the extreme heat, protecting the capsule.
Okay, and finally, the big picture.
And finally, just a fundamental overarching goal, gather critical data on every conceivable aspect of the rocket and spacecraft systems. Propulsion, guidance, control, thousands upon thousands of sensors measuring temperature, pressure, vibration, acceleration, stress, beaming back gigabytes of invaluable empirical data to ground control.
Data is king.
Always. This data was then meticulously analyzed by engineers to refine their models, identify any anomalies, even minor ones, and ensure that subsequent crewed missions would be as safe, predictable, and successful as humanly possible. This is about moving from theory to validated, real-world flight experience.
You can just imagine the palpable tension, the anticipation at NASA on November 9th, 1967, launch day for Apollo 4. After the profound loss of Apollo 1, those grueling 21 months of redesign, reevaluation, The success of this uncrewed flight wasn't just about technical validation.
Sure.
It was paramount to rebuilding confidence. Huge psychological stakes. Within the engineering teams, among the public, the politicians in Washington, the entire nation. It was about proving the path to the moon was still viable, that the lessons of tragedy had been learned, applied, that the ultimate goal was still within reach. This was a massive engineering gamble, this all-up test, not just of the rocket, but of NASA's ability to adapt, learn, overcome adversity. And thankfully, it paid off spectacularly. The launch was, by all accounts, flawless.
It really was. And that profound journey from the devastation of Apollo 1 to the successful uncrewed launch of Apollo 4, it truly marked a pivotal shift for the entire program, a turning point, where rigorous reevaluation, robust testing, that unwavering commitment to safety really took center stage. The program didn't just pick up where it left off. It was fundamentally transformed by the agonizing lessons from the fire. It emerged stronger, safer, more resilient.
Proof of concept.
Apollo 4's success was the first tangible proof that those changes were effective, that the new path was the right one.
And the value of the data collected from Apollo 4, you just can't overstate it, can you? That Apollo by the numbers reference really highlights how much information underpinned the program.
Absolutely critical data.
Apollo 4 provided invaluable empirical data. It replaced theoretical models with real-world flight performance. For instance, I read the F1 engines on the first stage actually performed slightly better than expected.
They did. And the J2 engines on the upper stages performed perfectly too. That high-speed re-entry test of the command module, simulating the return from the moon. It confirmed the integrity of the redesigned heat shield, other critical systems.
So this wasn't just academic number crunching.
Not at all. It was critical for moving forward with crewed missions, ensuring every calculation, every design choice was backed by actual flight experience. You had to know precisely how the whole system behaved in action before you put astronauts on top of that massive rocket.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So Apollo 4's success didn't just test hardware, it did something even more vital. It reestablished faith. Faith in the Apollo program's ability to achieve its incredibly ambitious goals. It rebuilt confidence within NASA, in Congress, with the American public. It proved the Saturn V, this monumental machine, could indeed deliver on its promise.
That confidence boost must have been huge.
Essential. It paved the way for the subsequent crewed missions, like Apollo 7 soon after, to proceed with renewed conviction, a strong safety foundation, knowing the core hardware was sound. Subsequent missions, like Apollo 6, which had some issues, built on this success too, but Apollo 4 really broke that barrier of doubt after Apollo 1.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can really see how Apollo 4, this uncrewed flight, was an absolutely essential bridge between those initial devastating setbacks and the later iconic triumphs.
A vital link in the chain.
It laid the crucial groundwork for missions like Apollo 8, the first crewed mission to orbit the moon, taking humans farther from Earth than ever before. Just think about that leap.
Incredible boldness, enabled by Apollo 4.
And ultimately, it cleared the path for Apollo 11, the first lunar landing. Each mission was a critical, interdependent step, building on the knowledge, the confidence gained from the one before it. Without Apollo 4 proving the mighty Saturn V and that redesigned Apollo system, those later celebrated missions might never have left the ground, or certainly not with the same level of confidence. It's hard to imagine the path forward without it.
And so, we've journeyed from that somber reminder of the Apollo 1 tragedy, understanding the painstaking reevaluation, the redesign it prompted, to grasping the ambitious, multifaceted goals that drove the entire program. We've unpacked the complex engineering marvels, the Apollo spacecraft, the legendary Saturn V rocket, and then delved into that critical first all-up test that Apollo 4 provided, a truly audacious move that thankfully paid off.
The legacy of Apollo 4 is profound. Even if it doesn't always get the same fanfare as the landings, it was a monumental, non-negotiable step. It demonstrated the Saturn V's immense power, its structural integrity. It confirmed the redesigned Apollo sister's readiness. And crucially, it allowed the human journey to the moon to continue.
Catch the dream alive.
It proved that despite devastating setbacks, the human will, ingenuity, that capacity for learning and adaptation, they were there to overcome. It marked a definitive return to flight for Apollo, igniting hope that the moon was, once again, within reach.
So consider this. Apollo 4 demonstrated not just the incredible power of the Saturn V rocket, but also that immense human capacity for learning, adapting, innovating, especially in the face of adversity. What might seem like just a simple uncrewed test was, in fact, this testament to humanity's unyielding drive to explore, to overcome challenges. That characteristic really defines our journey into the unknown, doesn't it?
It really does. Resilience and ambition.
So, what challenges today, maybe in your own world or on a global scale, what challenges demand that same level of commitment, that same spirit of rigorous all-up testing, that willingness to take calculated risk after profound setbacks to truly move forward? It's a powerful lesson, I think. Resilience and ambition.